Hello, my name is Dr. Glenn, and thank you for that wonderful introduction, Bruce. And I am the Chief Health and Science Director for the Real Abundance program, and as such, it's my job to try to make some sense out of all this confusing, complex sciences associated with ionized water and real abundance. So to start with, I'm going to be using some terms that many people might not be familiar with. So you're going to hear some of these terms, and there'll probably be more, but hopefully I can cover most of them here. Now, homeostasis is one. Homeostasis, it's a big word for balance. Homeostasis occurs in our body when all our systems are working in harmony and everything is balanced and running well. Okay, now ions, people, what is an ion? Well, an ion is any atom or molecule that does not have a balance of protons and electrons, and we'll go into that in a minute. Now, a negatively charged ion means there's more electrons than protons. I don't know if any of you remember from your early high school and all, atoms are made out of protons and electrons, and we have neutrons too, but we're going to ignore those for now. So now a positively charged or a positive ion is something that is more proton rich and it doesn't have a balanced amount of electrons. Now that's the bad one. Okay, anything that has a positive charge is not so good for our body. Now electrons are the little things that spin around the proton. You remember the picture of the atoms with the little ball spinning around a bigger ball. That's the protons are in the middle and the electrons are on the outside. Now you're going to hear me talk about ORP. That stands for oxidation reduction potential. What that is how many free electrons are there or lack thereof. So if we have a positive ORP, that means it's proton rich. You're missing electrons, and that is not something that is going to be good for our body. Okay, now a negative ORP, and it's measured in millivolts. A negative ORP means there's extra electrons there that can be donated to these electron deficient atoms, which are free radicals. And a free radical is something that, again, is an ion. Now, we have the damaging ones, we have the good ones. The good ones we call antioxidants. Now, we're also going to touch on the word detox or detoxification. Okay, that is your body basically cleaning itself. Toxins clearly are poisons. They're not good for us. Detox or detoxification is our body attempting to get rid of these things. Some things block that. Some things make it easier, and that's why we're here to discuss. Now, acid, alkaline, and pH. What the heck is that, right? Well, pH stands for potential hydrogen. Now, acid and alkaline are measured with pH. A pH of 7, now this is a scale of 0 to 14. 7, right in the middle, that's neutral. Now, if we look at that from a molecular standpoint, that means the protons and the electrons are balanced. It has no charge bias to be able to alter something around it. Okay? Now, if we go down in numbers from 7 into that pH scale, 6.5, 6.9 even, anything below 7 is an acid. Okay, that's not so good. That's a positive charge. So that's a proton-rich environment. Now, an alkaline, as we go higher on those numbers, an alkaline is electron. It has excess of electrons. It's something good for us. It can donate those electrons to the damaging ones, which are in the acidic scale lower than 7. So again, 7 is neutral. Anything above 7 is alkaline. Anything below 7 is acid. And just a little piece of trivia here that I won't quiz you on it later. For every number increase or decrease, that's a 10-fold increase or decrease in the acidity or alkalinity. Excuse me. So let's get started with the first chapter here. And it's a pretty brief chapter, so I'll add more material after we cover it. And it's titled The Water That Becomes Everything. We are discussing the book, The Miraculous Properties of Ionized Water by Mccauley. Now, this first chapter, he discusses, why alkaline ionized water and some of its history. And it goes way back, but the negative ionized water is the best water you can drink. And he makes a bold statement in this chapter, and I agree with him. It really is the best possible substance you can put in your body. And I think as we progress, you'll understand why. It's basically a liquid antioxidant. And we can flood our bodies with this and get to nooks and crannies that you just can't get to otherwise. Now, it's critical. This negative ionization through water and the extra electrons. It's critical to achieve this homeostasis that I spoke of earlier. So ionized water is negatively charged. It's full of electrons, and it's alive with all these electrons, which our body is just really starved for. And what it is a liquid antioxidant. And as a liquid antioxidant, a detoxifier. So negative ions actually have a long history, just the ions. And the Russians began studying this back in the 1850s. And probably because they weren't so interested in developing drugs that they could charge us a lot for and make us sicker. But without negative ions, the body simply can't survive. They are the fundamental building blocks of life. And the struggle for health boils down to the acquisition of enough negative ions for the body to continue. Now, electron and ion exchange is really what makes the world go round. Even our food, we break down into its basic components, electrons, and then we rebuild from there. We need the electrons for the energy to keep our bodies moving and building. Now, we can acquire some of this from raw food, but more importantly, we need the ionized water. And just a little caveat on that, people might think, well, you don't find this stuff occurring in nature. Actually, you do. And we just don't drink that water anymore. When you start running it through pipes and that sort of thing, you kill all of this. But when it's running through streams, especially water in motion, the top layer is ionized water. And even in some lakes and all, and we'll get into that technicality in the future. But the Russians did a lot of research in this field of ionized water back in the early 1900s. And their theory of positive ions being unhealthy and negative ions being healthy actually proved to be true, as crazy as they are, right? But the first ionizers were made in the 1900s, in the early 1900s, in fact. And this author feels that it's one of the greatest gifts to humanity and is still just barely recognized. And I agree with that. But in 1950, Japan researched ionizers heavily, and through all their experimentation, they saw such a positive outcome that they actually licensed them as medical devices on January 15th, 1966. Now, Korea did the same thing in 1976. And the first residential ionizers were available in 1958. And problem with those, though, ionizers, the machines, I'm sure you've probably all seen them and wondering about those. They're good. They produce a good product, but not everybody can afford one of those. And that water just doesn't taste that good, not like our concentrate. So now, don't drink the concentrate straight. So the real abundance is actually affordable, contrary to these machines. And another caveat on these machines is you can't take that water with you very long. You're lucky if the oxidation reduction potential, this ionization, lasts for a day and a half. Now, if you put it in the fridge, it might last for 3 days, but the whole time it's dying, that that ORP that we can measure, that oxidation reduction potential that we can measure with a meter, is going away slowly in that amount of time. Now, actually, it's not that slowly. So the way to drink that, if you have a machine, is fresh from the machine. Trying to take it with you for any length of time, it's not going to hold up. Now, you're also going to run into debunkers, and you can find plenty of these people on the internet. And most of them are just pure chemists. They seem to concentrate right there on just chemistry. They're not looking at the quantum aspect of life and nature, and or they're not looking at the latest research. And they seem to just simply offer their personal opinion based on non-living chemistry. And to add a little more info with that, the H2O is really, that's what we don't want to drink. That sounds weird, but H2O is purified water. There's nothing in it. It's just hydrogen and oxygen paired. Now, that becomes acidic. And how it becomes acidic, we get into carbon dioxide and increased carbonic acid. We'll cover that later. But it becomes acidic. Now, we add our concentrate, and it flips that. Now, Gerald Pollack did some wonderful research, and the water that we really want to consume, that our body tries to create itself, and we'll cover on this a little more, is H3O2, because of the way the molecules like to attract to each other. So let's move past that. I don't want to get too technical on things just yet. But ionized alkaline water is really, the best water you can drink. Now, alkaline water is good, just alkaline, and it's become quite the buzz these days. But it's a very small part of the big picture. And the big picture is the most important part of drinking the right kind of water is ionization. And I'm glad that these ionizing machines actually raised the awareness of people long before we discovered the real abundance concentrate. But they focused on the alkalization, and that is so unimportant compared to the ionization. The extra electrons, they provide the essential detoxifying and healing components and also the components for all the chemical and electrical actions that are occurring in our body on a consistent basis. And besides our body, just the cells in particular. All this has to happen in the cells. Now, because of this ionization, the molecules tend to attract to each other in a way that develops hexagonal shapes. And there we come into the H3O2. Now, I don't want to spend a lot of time explaining that. We'll probably do a little of that later. But again, Gerald Pollack, I have to thank him for his beautiful work on water. And he has proven that H3O2 is what our body needs, and that clusters hexagonally. And it all comes with a negative charge rather than a positive charge, like most of the water you see. So much so that this is so important. These extra electrons are so important that to our health and regeneration, that I started a couple of years ago saying that the fountain of youth is electrons, or electrons are the fountain of youth. And I really believe that. I've been drinking ionized water for about 20 years, and nobody ever guesses my age. I'm not bragging, but nobody ever guesses my age. So thank you to Dr. Pollack for proving the health benefits of our water. And the real abundance concentrate is the only product with stabilized ionization. The machines, like I said, they're good, but they're unstable. So the product is unstable, and it loses its effectiveness very rapidly. Whereas real abundance, it's long-lasting. You can take it with you. I'll be traveling through the week of 4th of July, and I will be drinking ionized water the whole time. Now, try getting that much water on an airplane. I do it because I bring the concentrate with me. So I can put this in water, and you can put it in any substance for that matter, and increase the electrons. And if it's an acidic drink like coffee or tea or something, you can lower the acidity. And particularly with water, the best water to put this in is either the purified water, reverse osmosis, or distilled. And then the magic happens with our concentrate. You put it in tap water, that's not a very good source of water to begin with. So I would avoid that if you can at all, but it's still putting the concentrate that is better than nothing. Now, normally you wouldn't want to drink those kinds of water, but if you add the concentrate, then it becomes healthy water. And one problem with bottled water in general, that purified drinking water you see, plastic. Bisphenol A, it's an estrogen mimicker, and it's really bad for us. And the best thing is if you have access to reverse osmosis, use that and put a concentrate in it, and then you have some beautiful, healthy water. Now, the negative ionization actually increases your energy, and that energizes you by two pathways. It's that because of that molecular attraction that I spoke of, it's structured hexagonally, which actually produces little microclusters, and they pass through what are called aquaporons, and I'll describe those a little later, which increases absorption of water through those aquaporons. And the cells are able to hydrate better and clean or detoxify better. So the extra electrons also are used in the mitochondria. Now, mitochondria are these little organelles. They're wonderful little things that we science thinks are actually separate little organisms that live inside our cells. And I call them the Edison plants of our cells. They produce the energy molecule for our body, and that's called adenosine triphosphate, also known as ATP. Some of you have probably heard of ATP. Well, that's what it is. It's the energy molecule, or the Edison, the electricity for our cell. And if those are functioning well with increased ATP, you will recover faster from exertion, and you'll just have more energy and vitality. Now, with these positive ions versus negative ions, we've got a problem out there. The environmental ratio leans heavily towards a positive charge. So just drinking negative ions helps to neutralize all that and helps to scavenge all these positive ions and free radicals. And I'll expand a little more on the environment shortly. But ionized water is abundant with hydroxyl ions. Now, hydroxyl ions are, here's another term that I'm throwing out here. Hydroxyl ions are actually hydrogen and oxygen together, but they have an extra electron. So hydroxyl ions carry these extra electrons that are so beneficial. Now, it becomes a free radical scavenger because it's able to donate that electron to a electron-deficient free radical and neutralize it. Then what's left over, though, is just O2, oxygen. Now, that's stable oxygen, and that's good for us. It has evenly paired electrons, so it doesn't have anything to donate anymore. But it's very good for the body. We breathe to get oxygen, and it helps to cleanse the blood, among other things. But that's what we call stable oxygen. Now, unstable oxygen is missing an electron, and that is an oxidizer, and it's bad for us. Our body gets rid of that quickly. So we don't want much of that in our systems. Now, stable O2, again, increases and benefits your health and cleans the blood. So an acidic environment increases disease, and an alkaline environment decreases disease. And the difference between, again, our water and any other is that stabilization. We have the ionization stabilized and providing the extra electrons and hydroxyl ions. And our bodies are just bombarded by all these positive ions that we need these electrons for. And some of those sources of positive ions, this list goes on and on, but I'm only list a few. Your TV, your computer screen, your cell phone, or your tablets, even warm, dry winds. Here we are in summer. Yeah, that's nice to know, huh? So that creates positive ions in the air. And even your forced air heating, positive ions coming out of that. Cooked food, particularly overcooked, and in particular processed foods, they're just loaded with positive ions, no electrons there. Drugs, heavy oxidants. Pesticides, heavy oxidants, very deficient in electrons. And all the other bottled waters, big source of acidity, which means, remember, acidity, positively charged. Now, also, too, radio transmissions, cell phone transmissions. These are all ionizing radiation. Well, how's our body supposed to survive with our modern society? We're just overburdening our systems. And we need something like a heavily ionized water to help neutralize all this and keep ourselves functioning properly and healthy. Now, you combine all that with our own cellular waste, which is positively charged as well, for the most part. How are we supposed to get rid of all this? So we try to get rid of so much of this waste product out of the cells by exchanging ionized water for this positively charged water due to aquaporons. And if we don't, guess what? Illness in many forms, heart disease, diabetes, oxidized cholesterol from inflammation in the blood. Again, the list goes on. And the cholesterol thing, well, ingesting as many negative ions as possible aids our bodies in neutralizing all these positive charges and free radicals. So sure, the body creates some of this type of water inside of it. And we thank Gerald Pollack for exposing that. He calls it easy water. And what happens is inside our cells we have a lot of hydrophilic surfaces, which means water-loving. Hydrophobic would be water-hating. But along these hydrophilic surfaces, and when we introduce energy in the form of infrared, which is around us all the time, infrared light, and UV light, sunlight, it actually helps to create this negative ionized water, and it structures hexagonally. He proved that well. And the trouble is our cells are overburdened with all this acidity caused by our own cellular activity and our positively charged acidic world. So, unfortunately, the surrounding infrared and ultraviolet really just isn't enough to cleanse us all the way. So this is a big aid. Anybody serious about a health regimen should include ionized water. So our body is said to be 65% water. Now, I disagree with that. I think that's just on an average, and most people are dehydrated. If we're properly hydrated, we're much higher than 65%. But if you look at it from a cellular standpoint, just the cells themselves are actually 90 to 95% water. So simply put, if the majority of our body's water is positively charged or acidic, we are or will be ill. And that's from the oxidative stress and accumulated toxicity. And there's no better way to scavenge all these free radicals and detox the body than to flood our cells with negative ionized water. And that results in a decrease in the acid in the body, which leads to an increase in detoxification, which also leads to increased regeneration. So, yes, you can actually start getting younger if you regenerate well enough. And if you're regenerating healthy tissue well and healing well, guess what? You're going to have a higher sense of well-being and vitality. Now, some people think, yeah, I drink 2 gallons a day and I'm flooding my cells just fine. Well, perhaps not. If that water is not hexagonally or what we call structured water, then it's not passing through the aquaporons well. So there's cases of people drinking, over a gallon of distilled water a day and they're diagnosed dehydrated. Well, how can that be? Because it's going through the intestine, but it's not going into the body. Now, let me talk about aquaporons. Aquaporons are these little water channels in cell walls which allow more rapid water transfer through the cell wall in and out of the cells. Now, an aquaporon is a little specialized protein, and there's about 10 of those or more have been discovered at this point. But they transfer the water much, much faster than water could ever get through a cell wall. And here's why. Trying to diffuse water through a cell wall, people usually don't remember, but a cell wall is made up of a phospholipid layer, bilayer, in fact. So what that means is a bilipid layer. Okay, what's that mean? 2 molecules of fat facing each other is what makes up our cell walls. So we're kind of big bags of fat full of water and proteins and things. So we all probably know you put oil in water, the fat and the water don't mix very well, do they? How are you going to get water through a cell wall? It's a fat wall, and water won't go through fat. They don't mix. So we need these aquaporons to carry the water in and carry the wastewater out. So they are found widely in living cells, such as bacteria, plants, and mammals like us. But they are very important. And as I said before, there's more than 10 different aquaporons that have been discovered. And they are very efficient transporters if the water is structured properly. Now, lack of the proper function has been linked to diseases such as diabetes insipidus, congenital cataracts, impaired hearing, among others. And let's address a little thing that some people like to throw out there, and that is, you drink that alkaline water, it's a waste of time because it goes into an acid stomach and it gets wiped out right there in the stomach. Well, let me say that's true, but it's only half true. So you got to be careful with half-truths. They get you in a lot of trouble. What happens is our stomach is, it runs in neutral, just without any food in it. It likes to sit at about a pH of 5. Now remember, anything below 7 is acid. Anything above acid is above 7 is alkaline. So that pH of 5 is just the neutral point. Now, if you eat particularly protein, that can go down to 1.5. Imagine how caustic that is. That helps break down our food. Then it moves on and gets neutralized. But people think, the acid of the stomach, that water's wasted. Well, something has to happen there if you're changing the environment. And let's talk about Newton. Remember Newton? For every action, there was an equal and opposite reaction. That's one of the fundamental laws of physics. So if we are changing the pH in our stomach, which means we're going to push it a little less acid, the body says, I want to make a little more acid so I can sit in that word, homeostasis. Well, remember, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. If it's making acid on the inside of the stomach, guess what's happening on the outside of the stomach, in the bloodstream? We're making alkaline. There's an alkaline buffer that occurs in the bloodstream. So when they say that water isn't reaching your bloodstream, well, the water does absorb quickly, but for the most part, it doesn't absorb as alkaline because the stomach did neutralize the alkalinity. However, there's the alkaline buffer that ends up in the blood. So we still get alkalinity from that water. Now, one interesting thing is, run this experiment sometime if you feel like it. Drink, say, a liter, just guzzle a liter of regular bottled water, that horrible stuff that's really poison. So I won't even drink that stuff. And see how long you slosh around with a big old water balloon in your stomach. Then drink a liter of water conditioned with our real abundance concentrate. And you won't feel that sloshing water balloon. It goes away very, very quickly. Within probably a minute or less, you won't feel sloshy. It absorbs into your system so fast because of that structuring, the molecular attraction, the structuring of those molecules. So, but let's just say, talking about all this alkaline and acid water, all acid water isn't bad. We just don't want to drink that. It's good for our skin and our hair and that sort of thing because our skin is the largest excreting organ, and it is acidic. It tends to be a little lower on the pH scale. And acid water is good for food sanitation. Plants like water on the acidic side. Environment sanitation, cleaning and disinfecting. Again, hair, teeth, skin, it's good for all that. It's good for hygiene. If you're going to do that, bottled water, it's better to have ionized acidic water if you're going to be using it for those purposes. But remember, it is that kind of water is only external use, topical only. You don't want to drink that stuff. And what that is typically most of the bottled water out there. And I like to say, it sounds kind of bad, but hey, I can throw rocks in water and make it alkaline. All we have to do is add some minerals to water. Grind those rocks up, throw them in as minerals. The water goes alkaline. It doesn't mean it's ionized, and it doesn't mean you're going to absorb those minerals. It just means it's not going to extract minerals from you, but it's still alkaline. Excuse me. Now, this typical bottled water and acidic water and all, it's made primarily of hydrogen ion. Now, hydrogen ion, I know we're getting into some similar sounding words, hydrogen, hydroxyl. Hydrogen is just hydrogen by itself, and it is missing electrons, okay? It is a positive ion, and it's a very, very heavy oxidizer. So it's an extensive free radical, which creates a lot of damage in your body. You don't want to drink that stuff. So it can wreak havoc. And that acid-alkaline pH balance is critical for us. Now, little caveat on that acid-alkaline. If any of you like sodas, I suggest you quit drinking that stuff, especially if you're drinking that diet nonsense. Now, you take the typical soda, and if you could get water at the pH of 10, now remember 7 is neutral, pH of 10, it will take 10 of those glasses, the same size as a soda, to neutralize that soda back to where it's not acid or alkaline. 10-to-1 ratio. Sodas are highly acidic, and we'll get into benzoic acid and benzene and all that stuff in the future. But acidic water is a positive charge. It causes inflammation in your body, which is a chaotic state. And chaotic state with this positively charged inflammation, in particular in the blood, is the cause of oxidation of cholesterol. Now, oxidized cholesterol leads to cardiovascular and heart disease. Normally, cholesterol is good for you, but if you put it in the wrong environment, you turn it into poison. So it can also increase your blood pressure, cause fatigue, and just the body being overburdened with toxins. So avoid positively charged water. Now, since the positive charges in acid water are free radicals, it also causes premature aging due to oxidative stress. So what we have with the Real Abundance Concentrate, and you can see this on our videos on the website. It's pretty cool to watch. You can take something that's acidic and put this Real Abundance Concentrate in it, and you see immediate alkalinity. you also see an immediate improvement of the oxidative reduction potential, which, remember, we want to see a negative reading, a negative millivolt reading of ORP. Now, that means it's yielding more available electrons, also known as hydroxyl ions, and it lends itself to the structuring hexagonally via the molecular attractions to each other, which pass again through the cell wall and aquaporons, which hydrates you more efficiently. So as we move through this information, people may have more questions, and we invite you to email those questions to askdrglenn@gmail.com. That is ASKDRGLENN, 2 N's, @gmail.com. Now, your questions won't be answered via email. I have a practice to run and all too, so I just don't have the time to email everything. But good questions we will bring into this forum and answer them in a verbal format. And be sure and tune in 2 weeks when we discuss Chapter 2, Where Life Begins, and more of why ionized water is so important for your health. Thank you for attending this call.
Thank you, Dr. Glenn. That was awesome. It was incredible information. I hope everybody took notes, and there's more to come, folks. The next call will be July 11th. So anybody in the health and nutrition industry, anybody that you have that is curious about what we're doing and the information that we're hearing tonight is so important. Doc, you got one more thing?
Oh, no, you cut out on my side for a minute.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't hear what you said.
All right. Well, listen, everybody, I hope you had a great night. This is very informative. Again, the next one is July 11th at the same time. And bring people to hear this information because it's vitally important to our product and why we're getting this out to people. And, again, thank you so much for taking the time tonight to listen to this information, and we look forward to working with each and every one of you every single day. Good night, everybody.
Being recorded.